Bill, what does it look like now, the best that we can expect if China really has narrowed the scope of what they're going to be willing to even talk about?
I think the best you see in the short run is that nobody walks away and they agree to have another meeting. I don't expect huge progress at this one. I do think sometime in the next couple of months there will be some kind of an interim deal. Chinese agree to buy more stuff, agriculture mostly. They make some modest concession on intellectual property. The president gets himself off the consumer hook and agrees not to impose new tariffs. That kicks the can on all the major issues, but I don't think anybody's prepared to make any concessions right now on the major issues.
Derek, where did the latest change in tack come from with China? Does it have anything to do with the what's happening with the president and Speaker Pelosi, do you think?
I don't think so. I don't think the Chinese have been willing to make a broad deal for quite some time. We had one on the table in May. They blew it up. We've never really gotten back to it. So I don't think it has to do with impeachment or the president's comments about investigating the Bidens. I think they feel like, hey, we've gotten to this point. We can stall for another year, especially if Bill's right and we get kind of a partial deal that keeps the president from attacking them with more tariffs as scheduled on December 15th. I agree with him. Those are unlikely to go into place.
So then take the other side and President Trump at this point, given that he's dealing with a lot of things domestically. Is he more likely to agree to less at this point to get it off the table?
Well, eventually, yeah, but I think the timing is important here. If he agrees to something too early, it'll be, whatever he's going to agree to is going to be less than what he wants, okay? And so if he agrees to something early, meaning early before the election, then it's got time to fall apart. Chinese noncompliance has got time to become obvious. The political success for him is to agree to something about a year from now so it doesn't fall apart before people vote. What that means, though, is he's got to keep things alive for the next year. And an interim agreement, you know, that'll kick the can for a few months. Then he'll have to come up with something else. But, I mean, I think Derek is right. The Chinese are not prepared to do what we are demanding. They weren't prepared in May to do what we're demanding, and they're not prepared now. I think their only assessment of the president's current troubles can be is that he's in a weaker position now than he was in May. So,
right, so what incentive do they have to do anything? Well, I mean, they could even say we're not going to buy soybeans at this point.
Because if they leave, then it gets Trump off the political hook. It allows him to blame them for failure, and they expose themselves to further retaliation. Why do that? It's easier to talk.
What do you make of the argument that Elizabeth Warren actually is going to hold a tougher line if she were to win?
I yield to Derek on that one.
Well, I mean, we haven't seen anything from the Democrats that's coherent on China. You know, she wrote a piece on Hong Kong that really didn't say anything. I suppose you could say she's a trade protectionist like Trump and she cares more about human rights. But she doesn't have a coherent position. Biden doesn't have a coherent position. So there's a lot of criticisms to be made of the president. I have plenty of them. But what we don't have on the other side is something that looks better.
They agree. The Democrats all agree on two things on this. One, Trump's doing it wrong, without them explaining exactly what that means. And two, which I think is a good criticism, is that he's not building coalitions. And with China, you need friends. You can't succeed bilaterally. The president's mantra is everything has to be bilateral. With China, you need to gang up on them. And there's some history that suggests when it's everybody against them, you can have some success. They don't like to be the outlier. When it's one-on-one, you get where we are now.
Even if they had a coalition, though, Derek, I mean, would a coalition be able to force the Chinese to make substantial changes to their industrial policy or to get rid of subsidies for their state-owned enterprises? I mean, these are fundamental issues with the Chinese economy. They just came off their 70th anniversary of the PRC. It doesn't seem like they would be in a position to say, you know what, we'll give in and we'll change the way we do things.
No, they're not going to do that, coalition or no coalition. I don't think it helps to antagonize our friends and allies as we might do with the autos dispute with Europe next month. But it isn't going to get the Chinese to change industrial policy. That's a multi-year process where people are already complaining about the cost of the American economy of tariffs that only became serious a few months ago. If you want the Chinese to change industrial policy, we're talking about 2022, 2023.